channel before, you've probably seen them because this is part 15. But if you're curious, it's called My Romantic Cabin Getaway. Anyways, this is part 15 of 16. And I just kind of read the first couple of sentences here. And he says this is the conclusion. So this is part 1 of the big conclusion. Part 2, which is part 16 of the whole story, will be the second part of the conclusion. So it is a bit lengthy, but it sounds like it is probably the best one thus far. So stick with me, guys. I do feel that it will be worth it. So with that being said, before we start, I showered recently and I was like, I'm getting ready for bed, and I was thinking, doing a no sleep story would be perfect to combine with getting ready for bed, getting ready to not sleep. So I took a shower, I brushed my hair a bit, but I didn't do my whole hair brushing routine where I used my products and product. Okay, now I'm gonna use 2 different brushes today, and I want you guys to tell me which one you like better. So first we have this bamboo brush, which is bigger. So bamboo brush. And then we have this wet brush. Which one do you guys like better? I think I like the bristle sounds of this one better and the tapping of this one better. So 50-50. Okay, so this leave-in conditioner that I use is by Mark Anthony. It's a detangler, reduces breakage, fizz, and split ends, says caffeine and ginseng, and the bottle is super nice and soft, and I don't know, packaging is solid. Alright. From roots to end. And then this one. Okay. Alright, and we're gonna do the wet brush. Oh yeah. Okay. Now on this side, I'm going to use the bamboo brush. This one definitely is a quicker hairbrush than the other one. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, but anyways, so since I've started using this stuff, I do feel like my hair has been healthier, and yeah, it's not breaking as much at the ends. I can't remember the last time I was able to grow my hair this long. Alright, so I'm gonna read the story, and then kind of in between, I'm gonna paint my nails, finish painting my nails, and file my nails. Okay. Alright, come on, iPad, wake up. Okay, here we go. Alright, so I am so sorry about the length of this post. It is enormous. I actually have to split it into 2, like I said, because of Reddit's word count limit, but this is it. better or for worse, the end has finally come. After I post the other half of this update in a few days, I will never speak of these events again. I have lost far too much and it hurts me too deeply to continue. It has been a long time since I talked about my fiance and the events surrounding our vacation at our parents' cabin in Colorado. But I think enough time has passed. I have finally unearthed the secrets Faye's family has been hiding from me. No Sleep has been remarkably supportive, so even though what I'm about to tell you is deeply personal, you've helped us get this far. You deserve to know what I have found. We moved 2 weeks ago. I got a new job, so we found a new place a few towns over. It's only an hour's drive from our old place, and it's the same distance from Faye's work, but in the opposite direction. As if by the law of horror cliches, the strange activity that plagued us at the night ceased entirely for a week when we moved into our new place. However, it started up again after a while, just as I feared it might. Our new home had not yet been blessed by Angela when the activity started up again. She is okay. It doesn't matter. She's the daughter of a Shawnee tribe member, and he's explained this 80 million times. The imposter has not given up on Faye. Its game is to wear us down until we just give up. Just gonna file these a little bit. Okay, so now this is called New House, this section. I had a Skype chat set up with Faye's very reticent mother, but per No Sleep's warning, I waited until after we moved. The fear was that Laura might divulge something over Skype that the imposter could use against us. The more it discovers about us, the more closely it can mimic me and any of Faye's family members. Living or dead, when she is asleep, Faye is highly susceptible to suggestion. The running hypothesis No Sleep has developed is that there are certain things the imposter needs to know about Faye in order to infiltrate her, to control her, to kill her. We don't really know what it plans to do with her, but we do know that it is especially curious about the significance of the number 5, which Faye drew on a window while sleepwalking. She gets agitated anytime 5 is brought up, but cannot coherently explain why. I think that once it learns the meaning of the number, it will have full access to Faye and will be able to do whatever it's planning with her. I sat on the couch with my laptop and Skyped Laura around 10 p.m. one night in our new place, about a half hour after Faye had fallen asleep. I had to be extremely aggressive in order to break Laura's wall of lies about her family's past, and just when she seemed ready to crack, Faye walked out of the bedroom. We now live in a one-story. It was dark in the hall, so she scared the shit out of me when I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. She stood there in the shadows, rigid and still. Her entire body was stiff and her head was craned all the way back in a painful position. Her chin pointed at the ceiling and her arms were straight up in the air in a hallelujah gesture. That's funny to me. I don't know why. She hadn't sleepwalked in a while now, so I immediately told Laura I'd call her back and jumped up. Faye shushed me and wiggled her fingers, arms still outstretched. She looked like a praying mantis in repose. That's funny. That is funny. Okay, so he said, I asked Faye, what is it? She smiled and replied, do you know about her? She closed her hands and one of her fingers pointed at the ceiling. I said I didn't know what she was talking about and asked what? No, what? I looked up at the ceiling and saw nothing. Faye paused and then said, there's an old woman up there. She lives in the attic. She's friendly. She remembered my birthday. My skin crawled. It felt like insects skittering under my clothes when she said that. Faye says a lot of disturbing things, and I've grown used to it, but occasionally she still surprises me. I asked her more about this old woman and she said, she sleeps right above our bed. Faye brought her arms down to her sides and her muscles relaxed. She stopped answering my questions. I walked her back into the bedroom and gently tucked her in. That night I lay awake in the dark, staring up at the ceiling. I imagined the corpse of an old woman stuck up inside the drywall or dangling from the rafters in the attic. I couldn't shake the feeling that our unwanted guest had moved in with us and was now pretending to be a friendly stranger to trick Faye. That night I dreamed of a dark stain spreading out across the ceiling in the shape of a large man, just like the stains in our old house a few weeks prior. As I was falling asleep, I thought I heard something heavy dragging itself around up there. Laura called the following evening. Faye wasn't home from work yet, so we had a good hour-long chat before things got uncomfortable. I had to spend a lot of time getting her back into the emotional space where she could open up about her daughter, and when she finally did, I was astonished. It felt like the first time Laura had ever told me the truth about anything. I don't have any proof that she was being honest, but I could hear it in her voice. It is true that Faye was 5 years old when she developed her unusual sleep disorder. But the number 5 doesn't symbolize that. It goes a lot deeper. As I mentioned before in a previous update, Faye's parents lied to me and told me she had been visiting the cabin in Pikes Peak regularly throughout her life until she was 13, and yet Faye claimed she had never been there before, ever. In reality, Faye went there a few times as a child, but her last visit was at age 5. She and her father Greg were outside building a snowman, but then Faye walked to the tree line and began speaking with someone that Greg could not see. She spoke her own name and said a few other things Greg couldn't hear, then had some sort of seizure and became catatonic. When she came to, she cried for hours. But there was apparently more to the story. Just as Faye got home from work and walked in the door, I heard Laura said, a few months before that, I was pregnant. The second I covered the mouthpiece and said, "Hi, sweetie," Laura hung up the phone. Okay. Interesting. I'm gonna brush this part of my hair again. So, it is gonna be below freezing tonight here in Florida. It's gonna drop down to about 27 degrees, so love that. Love that. Alright, let's paint. Let me paint the pinky finger. Okay, looking ahead, I do want to tell you guys there is a bit of a trigger warning regarding birth trauma, so just so you know. Okay. Oh man, doing the pinky's really hard. Oh my goodness. Okay, this video is gonna be so long. But it'd be impressive if you guys could fall asleep to a no sleep story. But also that would probably mean that you're bored, so maybe that wouldn't be good. And you're trying to do this last one. Okay. Oh my goodness. Alright, one hand is done. One hand is not. Oh. Okay, good. I didn't chip it. I thought I did for a second. Okay. Okay, so he's saying I kept this revelation to myself for a while, that Laura was pregnant a few months prior. Laura didn't return my call after Faye went to bed, so I've never found out what happened to her pregnancy. Did she have a miscarriage, an abortion? Did she give the baby up for adoption? Was it not Greg's child? Millions of questions swarmed in my mind. I didn't sleep at all, and I could barely hide my thoughts from Faye. She knew something was wrong. She's quite perceptive, but I acted like I had a stomachache and went to bed. The stomachache. That night I had an absolutely terrible dream, probably the worst one I ever had. In it, an adult Faye attacked her pregnant mother. She was sleepwalking but screaming wildly and pummeling her mother just like she had pummeled the guest bedroom door when her sister and infant nephew visited last month. There was blood everywhere in the dream, and Faye ran off into the woods with the fetus. Oh my god. Okay. It was so violent, I jolted away, nearly screaming. Yeah, okay, I need a second after that. Let's paint the thumb. Okay. Alright, so now he's saying, when I woke up Faye was sitting upright in her bed, staring out the window. Oh boy. There's the thumb. Cool. Alright. She was awake, I could tell, because her posture was normal and her eyes weren't rolled back in her head or blissfully sealed shut. She said, Whoa. Okay. She said, "Did you hear it too?" It took me a while to figure out where I was. When I saw her sitting there in a pristine white t-shirt, I sighed in relief. There was no blood anywhere. It was just a dream. Before I could answer her question, I heard a baby crying. Oh no. We live in a bigger suburban neighborhood now, so it was entirely possible that it was just a sound from one of the nearby houses. But Faye's reaction to it really disturbed me. The look on her face made me think the sound was causing her physical pain. She cringed and shut her eyes, trying not to cry. I cupped her face in my hands and told her it was okay. But as I did, another voice rang out from the dark. It was a little girl, and she was speaking as if to a baby. From what I could hear, she said, "When do we go inside?" "Up in the trees." "Where?" Starting to cry. "Not in the hole, not down there." Faye started crying too. I looked out the window but couldn't see anything. She had no explanation for why she was so upset other than, "He's back, he's here, I know it's him." I didn't want to scare her, but I completely agreed. Okay, now the next section is called Conversation with Nathan. Okay, so I had a missed call from Nathan the next morning when I woke up. It was Saturday, and Faye and I had plans to get new furniture at IKEA. When she was in the shower, I returned his call. He answered on the first ring. He sounded really bad. The first thing he said was, "Felix, do you know anything about the child?" A few weeks later, he had said, "Tell me about the child," and I had no idea what he was talking about. Now I had a pretty clear idea. So I whispered to him that Faye's mother had been pregnant when Faye was 5, but I had no idea what became of the baby. He told me to get as much information from Laura. Sorry, just readjusting. As much information from Laura as possible, at all costs, but to keep it from Faye. He also told me that he was going to make us a special herbal mixture to make into tea before bed. He said it promotes good dreams and therefore would shield us from some of the imposter's intrusions. I asked Nathan to explain what he meant. He said very simply, the imposter does not read minds, it reads dreams. This was an astonishing revelation to me. It explained so much about the cabin. The imposter mimicked Faye's grandfather because she probably had a dream about him at the cabin, and it mimicked my mother for the same reason. It mimicked the people Greg saw die in the war because he frequently had nightmares about them. The former owner of the cabin, Jennifer, heard her dead daughter's voice in the forest at night because she regularly dreamed about her. The creature mimics the people it learns through the dreams of its victims and repeats them in the forest to coax those victims outside. It also listens to the things people say while they're awake. This is why we heard so many unrecognizable and familiar voices at the same time. Some of those voices belong to other victims. The thing wanders around in the dark, learning from its target, sharpening its skills, and pretending that's how it hunts. So since I was getting near to the significance of number 5, the information the imposter so desperately sought, Faye was in greater danger. My own dreams could never betray our safety. Nathan continued, Faye is the most fascinating person the imposter has ever encountered. Her dreams are mysterious to it. She is a puzzle to be solved, and most of all, when it speaks to her through her dreams, she speaks back. I guess you could say it has a very dark fixation with her, perhaps even love, a putrid form of it anyways. It was true, Faye mirrored the imposter's darkness. When it looked into her, it didn't find all of the hopes and dreams it saw in others. Instead, it saw a deep well of impenetrable blackness, and it knew there was something hidden beneath it. Whatever it plans to do with the information it seeks, it knows that 5 is the light that will reveal the bottom of that well, and everything skin during this conversation. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear so as not to miss a word. I asked, why does it even need Faye to find the answer? Her parents probably know what the number means too. Nathan said something in his native tongue as though he were speaking to a person sitting in the room with him. Then he said, her parents haven't been to the cabin in a very long time. Its connection to them is weak. Maybe it can't keep hold of someone for very long if they aren't on the mountain. After all, Faye has had her sleep disorder since she first went to Pikes Peak, but as the years passed, this entity faded from her life. It only returned when she came back. I heard the shower turn off, the glass door slid open, and Faye began moving around the bathroom. I walked outside onto the patio and closed the door behind me. But what does it want, Nathan? I asked. I mean, once it learns everything it needs, what does it plan to do? No one will give me a straight answer. Again, Nathan said something I couldn't understand. He was talking to someone else. Ooh, okay, I have a bad feeling about this. He was talking to someone else. Perhaps one of the elders in his community was with him. It is one of the old evils, he said. Our people have believed in them since the beginning. When a person dies, sometimes they become what you call them, a wraith, a haunting. But these entities were here long before. So many horror films that Faye and I had I don't cheerfully watch horror films, that cheerfully watched came flooding into my mind. Ugh, it's like a demon. I said, I can't tell you how many movies I've seen where a family finds out that the ghost in their house is actually a demon, and for a few obscure reasons, that's much worse. I felt like I was about to be given that speech. Nathan cleared his throat. Well, not exactly. We don't believe in hell or any equivalent place. Our interpretation of the other world is very complex, but basically this type of entity, they take you away, not your body. There's your spirit. They take it out into the dark, away from the world and its light, so far away, eternities upon eternities away. The distance drives your spirit completely mad, and then you become one of them. That's what it does. He separates you from where you're supposed to go in the afterlife. It steals you from yourself. I also asked Nathan how he was coping with his father's death and pointed out that he sounded especially dreary today. Again, I expressed my condolences and said I was most honored to have known Getaway and that we are alive because of him. Nathan replied that he knows his father's spirit lives on through this family and the sacred earth in which they live. For that reason, he doesn't mourn his death. However, Nathan also said something that made my hand go cold as I clutched the phone. He said, I keep having the same nightmare every night. It keeps me awake when it's over. I'm exhausted. I asked him to tell me about the dream, as I have been having terrible ones lately too. He said, it's the cabin. I see it in my dreams. It's sitting there in the dark and there's a bad storm. I'm standing in the distance looking at it. A light turns on inside and I walk toward it. As I approach, the front door slowly opens and something in my heart tells me not to step inside. But I do. Every time I do, when I'm inside, the light cuts out and it's very dark. From the living room, I can hear my father's voice calling out to me from the bedroom. He is speaking in our language and sounds happy and peaceful. He tells me to come to him, and then he wants to see my face before he goes to be with our ancestors. He calls me my light, the nickname I was given as a child, but when I go to push the bedroom door open, I wake up to the sound of a child crying every time. Nathan went on to explain that he feels these dreams are a sign and that he must return to the cabin in the sight of Getaway's death. I said it could be a trap, you know. In fact, I'm sure it is. Nathan spoke once more in his language to whoever was in the room with him and then paused. He finally sighed and said, you might be right, but it really feels like him. Oh, goodness. I made him promise not to go back to the cabin. He agreed and said he'd call me in a few days. I thanked him again for his father's sacrifice. Oh my. Oh my. Okay, it keeps going. Okay. Alright, the secrets unravel. A few days passed in relative peace. Laura didn't return my calls, and Becca, Faye's sister, didn't return my texts. The standoffishness of this family drives me insane. When Faye and I got home from doing groceries one evening, a package had arrived in the mail. It contained the herbs Nathan talked about with instructions on how to make them into tea. Not too much, read the little note. Faye brewed some of it and drank it, and when she was finished, I jokingly told her, actually, we are sending you on a vision quest. This is going to be really she was doing here, but I knew by the look on her face that there was trouble. I invited her inside and informed her that Faye was still asleep, and she actually was relieved and said she wanted to talk to me alone. From her bag, she produced a photo album. We sat on the couch where she quietly apologized to me for everything, for being evasive, for lying, for letting us go to that cabin in the first place. I only have 3 more nails to do. I might do it after the story because this is really long, but it's gonna be good. Okay, or it is good. Hold on. I'm just trying to figure out where I left off. Okay, for letting us go to the cabin in the first place. I waved away her ramblings and demanded to know the purpose of her visit. I had absolutely, hairs in my mouth. I had absolutely had enough of all this and wanted to get to the bottom of things. Laura dropped her voice to a whisper and opened the photo album. As she turned the pages, I realized it was actually a scrapbook, a very elaborate one that had taken years of effort to construct. There were photos, drawings, designs, letters, postcards, even a necklace, and some flattened flowers. I saw pictures of Faye I had never seen before. She was absolutely adorable as a kid. Her glowing smile poked out from beneath strawberry locks in photo after photo. Laura said, "This is what I wanted to show you. I don't know how to talk to Faye about it." I was amazed. It took expert handiwork to craft something like this. "You made this?" I asked. She flipped further into the scrapbook and revealed a few old pictures of herself in the later stages of pregnancy. The centerpiece of one of the pages was a photograph of Laura, big-bellied and bearing a youthful smile, and 5-year-old Faye curiously resting her ear on her mother's tummy. It was a priceless image and one that hadn't seen the light of day in decades. Faye and I put this together, actually, when she was very little. It made sense. Faye is one of the most talented arts and crafts hobbyists I've ever known. "So, what happened?" I asked. Laura looked over her shoulder and down the hall. She obviously feared that Faye would wake up. "His name was Christopher," she said. Tears welled up in her eyes as she spoke. When she turned the page, there was a photo of Laura undergoing an ultrasound and giving a thumbs up. He was stillborn a little over a month before the due date. I had no idea what to say. I felt that saying "I'm sorry" was too empty, so instead I just remained silent. "Placentia abruption," she continued. "It's rare, but it happens." She scooted closer to me on the couch and set the scrapbook on my lap, then grabbed my wrist. She said, "Felix, Faye doesn't remember any of this. We have never ever spoken of it." I asked how that could be possible, given that she was certainly old enough to remember an event like this. Laura explained that the emergency occurred while Greg was out with the girls. The paramedics rushed Laura to the hospital, but the baby couldn't be saved. When she and Greg finally decided to break the news to their daughters that Christopher had died, Becca was heartbroken, but Faye didn't react. It was as if what they were telling her simply didn't register. Laura would say, "Do you understand that Christopher is never coming home?" And Faye would respond, "Yes, Mommy," with a blank expression. This went on for weeks. Faye would occasionally ask about Christopher as if he'd be visiting soon, and then suddenly she'd not remember anything about him, as if he never existed. She began to act out at school and would throw violent tantrums for no reason. A child psychologist warned that Faye was not handling the situation well, so Laura and Greg decided to spend several days up at the cabin with the girls in hopes of separating little Faye's mind from the heavy event. That's when it happened. Whatever it is that lives in the forest up there, up in the trees, or down in the hole took notice of Faye. It wanted to learn more, but her little brain shut down in terror when it got too close. Laura said, after that day, Faye never spoke of Christopher again and seems completely unaware that he even existed. Quite suddenly, Faye's voice erupted behind us. She was standing in the hallway, perhaps for a long time. Oh no. I slammed shut the scrapbook. The air went out of the room. There was an agonizingly long moment of stillness during which all of us exchanged surprised looks. "What's that?" she finally asked, pointing to the scrapbook on my lap. I was useless, a deer in the headlights. Laura got up and got between me and Faye, giving her a hug and asking how she was feeling. She said they needed to talk, but Faye pushed her aside and walked over to the couch. Her fiery eyes locked on the scrapbook and didn't blink. She reached down and opened it. The face she revealed had a colorful cutout of the number 5. It was one of the final pages of the book. Her jaw trembled and tears instantly welled in her eyes. A look of excruciating pain fell over her face, and she began hyperventilating. Laura rounded the couch and tried to assuage her, but Faye slapped her hand away and grabbed the scrapbook, then raced off to the bedroom. She cried in there for hours and never let us in. Okay, this is the last section. Okay. Alright, last section is called The Worst News. Okay. He's saying, I spent the rest of the day alone. Faye never emerged from the bedroom and wouldn't speak to me when I knocked, so I played Overwatch to distract myself from the horrible knot of stress in my stomach. Meanwhile, texting with my best friends Richard and Jason the new developments. When I got up for a drink, I heard the bedroom door click. Faye was ready to let me in. She was sitting on the bed with the scrapbook in her lap when she pushed the door open. I said as gently as I could, "You want to talk about it?" Her face was streaked with hundreds of tears. Her skin was pale and her eyes were lifeless. Never had I seen her in such a state. I considered calling the paramedics for fear that she might hurt herself or me. She said, "I remember now." I stood there in the doorway, afraid to make a move. I wasn't sure how Faye would react to the knowledge that I had been conspiring with her mother about their secret past. "Mom and I spent all summer getting the nursery set up," she said, tracing a finger over one of the photos. "Dad was so excited that he finally was going to have a son, so we did a sports theme." I walked over to the bed and sat down, quiet as a lamb, trying not to trigger another explosion. Faye kept her hands pressed on the scrapbook as though she was feeling for a pulse. The colorful number 5 rested at the center of the page, laid over various photos. In one, there was a baseball mural painted on the wall with 5 players, and in another, a toddler onesie in the design of a basketball jersey. It displayed the number 5. Faye started crying and choked out. Christopher was going to be the 5th member of our family. We talked for a long time. Mostly Faye talked. I just quietly watched her face in awe as a deluge of ancient memories flooded her mind. Sometimes she could barely speak. Other times she shook her head and said it was all a dream. Her denial rose and fell in waves, and she grasped at all the faded images in her head and tried to describe them to me with great strain. A tomb had been unearthed, and Faye was excavating it despite the pain it wrought on her. All I could do was hold her hand through it. That night I made Nathan's tea again, and we both drank it. Faye fell asleep and I stayed awake watching Netflix. Just as I was about to shut off the computer, I heard rustling outside. "Oh my gosh." And then the voice of a little girl. She said, "It's Faye. I can't see you. Who are you?" I walked down the hall and peered out the blinds in the living room. A dark figure walked right past the window, scaring me half to death. It came from her backyard and no doubt had been standing beside her bedroom window. I ran down the hall and grabbed my sweats and shoes, then bolted the door and looked all around the property. There, across the road, standing under a street lamp, was a man. His body glowed in the pale yellow light, but his face was totally black. He looked nearly 7 feet, and one of his shoulders was noticeably higher than the other. His posture was rigid and reminiscent of the way his face sleepwalked. I knew exactly who it was. I can't explain what prompted me to run after him, but I wanted to grab this thing by the neck and beat it to death with my bare hands. Perhaps it was because I was so tired my fear instinct hadn't kicked in, or perhaps I just had enough. But instead of climbing to death right there in the street, the figure turned and ran. I chased after him, screaming at the top of my lungs to stay the fuck away from the family and the house. The thing moved very fast, but limped with a freakish gait. My mind envisioned a rail-thin creature made of oily black parts stretching on a costume of human and gracelessly lurching around in it. The thing was not a person. Its movements were animalistic. Its strides were far too long. Its breath wheezed the air like an antique accordion, and the stench that dragged behind it singed my nose. It smelled like wildfire. "No woods for you to fuck around in out there," I screamed. Lights flicked on in houses all around me as I chased the figure. It practically galloped and was always 20 feet ahead of me. I chased it down for 2 blocks. It rounded a few turns and finally bounded over a chain-link fence into the community park, where there were no lights. I couldn't see a damn thing, so I had to run all the way around the other side to get it. The only thing I could see was a silhouette. The figure stood there in the empty field, shrouded in the night, gazing up at the moon. The silver outline of its body indicated that it was facing away from me. One of its hands twitched wildly, the other was gnarled up like driftwood. The sight of it out here, so far from help, unnerved me. I approached it, still committed to ending this nightmare tonight. One way or the other. Okay. Okay, so my courage evaporated about 10 feet from the figure when it issued a growl I can't even describe. It was so deep I felt it in my rib cage as much as I heard it. I stopped in my tracks, but still managed to say, "You will never take her. You will never have Faye. You will leave us alone forever. Go back to that fucking mountain and bury yourself in a mine." It growled again, then gurgled up a wet laugh. "What is your name?" it asked. In my voice. It had been practicing. It was perfect now. "May I come in?" "How do you carry on a conversation with an entity that is basically a demonic parrot?" I said, much louder than before. "You will leave us alone and go back to the mountain. Faye will never be yours." The imposter emitted the shrieking of an infant. The sound startled me and felt so wrong coming out of the form of such a large man. Then it said in the voice of a child, "You go down in the hole. That's where I'll put you." "Look at me, you piece of shit," I said. I tried to sound menacing, but in reality, I'm a coward. Most people can sense it, so there was a little doubt the imposter knew it too. Then it said something I didn't expect. The sound threw me off, so much my head spun. "Tell me about the child," it said. Nathan's voice wafted gently from its throat. "Tell me about the child." Oh. Before I could speak, the imposter whirled around and squared off with me. There are no words to express the combination of shock and instant despair that I felt. My knees came straight out from under my body and I fell onto the wet grass. Staring down at me, boring into me with lidless eyes, was the face of Nathan, my friend, my protector, the son of a man who had given his life to help me. Now his skin was hard and bruised, his scalp flayed, his eyes tormented. Oh my gosh. He'd been stretched over a skull that didn't quite fit and a body that rattled with loose connected bones. A slimy black liquid dribbled down the arms. Oh my gosh, that's so disturbing. Perhaps it was blood, it was too dark to tell. It spoke a phrase in the language of Nathan's people. The same one Nathan had uttered over the phone last month that made us sick. And I began vomiting profusely as I lay there on the ground. "Tell me about the child," it said once more, then smiled. The lips spread and stretched in an expression of malevolent joy, bearing the rotten maw of a long-dead wolf. Nathan's calm voice seeped out of it. "Let me speak to the one who followed you home." I gasped for air, but couldn't command my body to move. The creature took a few steps toward me, and I slammed my eyes shut, expecting to feel... Oh god, this is scary. Okay, expecting to feel those hideous fangs in my neck. Instead, I heard its footsteps approach and then recede in the opposite direction. When I opened my eyes, the imposter had stepped over me and was walking away. It was already in the distance, moving quickly, back toward my neighborhood, toward my house. "Followed you home," it repeated, the voice echoing in the cold night air. "Followed you home. Followed you home." That is all, folks. I am going to say goodnight now. I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your night and that you sleep well. Alright, I will see you all soon for the next part.